Hey everybody, welcome to the 6th grade podcast. This is Miss Brown and Miss Butterfield, and we're going to talk to you guys about weather fronts and how to forecast weather.
So this is a picture of the different types of air masses. We have four main categories. We have maritime, and that's represented by a lowercase m. It means it forms over the water and the air is wet and humid. We have continental, that's represented by a lowercase c, that forms over land and that air is dry. Then you have polar, which forms over the polar regions like North Pole, South Pole, think polar bears, and it's really cold. And then you have tropical, and it develops over the tropics. It's warm, tropical air. Think of beach vacation. So we put them together. You can have maritime polar. That means it was formed over the water near the polar regions. Or you can have continental polar, where it's formed over the continents in a polar region. You can have maritime tropical. It's formed over the water in tropical regions near the equator. Or continental tropical, and it's formed over land in warmer places.
Now, when those air masses like to meet, we create what's called a front. Now, front is basically that line of where an air mass meets another air mass. Now, air masses are different because of their temperature and their humidity level. So, for instance, we have a cold front. And a cold front is where a cold air mass that has obviously colder temperatures meets a warm air mass that's warmer temperatures. And what happens is that cold air mass comes in really, really, really fast, and what happens is it shoves that warm air straight into the upper atmosphere, creating those really tall cumulonimbus clouds. So cold air moves underneath warm air, shoving the warm air up, sending that moisture up into the atmosphere, creating those really tall clouds.
So here's a great way that a student told me to remember. Look at that cold front symbol. Those triangles look like teeth, and it's like aggressive. It comes in and you get thunderstorms. So it looks like teeth, and those teeth are like chomping at the warm air, and it shoves underneath and pushes that warm air up, over, and out.
So if we look at our weather map symbol, we have those blue triangles, and what happens is those blue triangles are actually arrows, and their arrows are pointing in which direction the cold air is moving. So the arrows are showing, behind the arrows is where our cold air is, and like Miss Butterfield said, they're chomping at the warm air, and our warm air is over here trying to get eaten by the cold air. So what happens with a cold front is it has a lot of storms, a lot of thunderstorms. We do get some lightning with that one. And once the cold front moves on, we're left with that cold air mass, so it ends with colder temperatures.
The next kind of front you have is a warm front. So you have warm air that moves up and over the cold air. Look at that symbol. It kind of looks like maybe the little frilly edges of a blanket. And the warm air acts like a blanket. And you know, when you swoosh a blanket up and over under your bed, that air bubble underneath pushes out the bottom. And the same thing kind of happens with that cold air. That warm air mass comes up and over the cold air, and it pushes that cold air forward and out of the way. When the cold air and the warm air touch, you get drizzly rain. But once that cold air moves out, you're left with warm air and warmer temperatures.
If we look at our weather map symbol, behind the weather map, or behind the symbol here, okay, that's where we have our warm arrow. These are like arrows again, not quite as pointy as with the cold front, but they are pointing in the direction that the warm air is going. Okay. All right, so let's look at our stationary front. A stationary front is where warm meets cold, but that warm air doesn't rise like it would in a cold front. So what happens is that we've got this cold air coming in, and we've got this warm air coming in, and they're just kind of shoving each other back and forth and back and forth. A good analogy for this is think of like a battle or a war. Where those two armies meet is the front line. So the front line would be here. And what happens is neither army is strong enough to really win the fight. So they're just kind of throwing punches back and forth, not really winning. So what ends up happening is the front doesn't move, and we're left with many days of cloudy, rainy weather. And looking at our weather map symbol, okay, notice that we have a combination of the warm front and the cold front going on our weather map symbol here. This direction, remember, draw those arrows. So if the arrows pointed this way, then that means that our cold air is back here. And if the arrows are pointed this way, that means the warm air is back there.
All right, now we have an occluded front. This is when a warm air mass is trapped between two cold air masses. Its symbol is the purple line that's a combination of the cold and warm symbols. We get really cool temps with lots of rain or snow, and this can cause funnel clouds. When you see it on the map, it kind of looks like a purple person with a red leg and a blue leg, and when it moves through the map, it kind of does a backflip, and that shows you that spinning motion. And that spinning motion is where we get the rotation for the funnel clouds. You have two cold air masses at the bottom, and they're squeezing that warm air mass up at the top. So on the ground, what you have is cold air. You have cold air in the front, you have cold air in the back. So the whole time you're going to have colder temperatures on land, and you're going to get some really serious weather. Remember the other day, we're sitting in sixth period, and all of a sudden the rain just pours down out of the sky. Well, that day we were having an occluded front. It moved really quickly, but while it was here, we got tons of precipitation. So occluded fronts are fast and furious.
Try that again. All right, so now we're going to look at a weather map and kind of put all of these things together. All right, so Ms. Butterfield was just talking about the occluded front that came through, what was that, Wednesday?
I think so.
All right, so Wednesday the occluded front came through. We can see the occluded front here. Notice it's not on us anymore, okay? The occluded front doesn't stick around for long. It does move pretty quickly, and that spinning and turning of the air and the moisture above it goes with it. And like Ms. Butterfield said, it's got that red leg and that blue leg, and it kind of does a backflip as it's moving across the United States. Now with an occluded front, we have those two cold fronts that are joining in. So we've got some colder air here, some really cold air here. We've got the warm air here behind the warm front, and then in front of the warm front we have some really cold air. So like Ms. Butterfield said, it begins cold and it ends cold. Notice in the center of that occluded front we have an L. Remember, L stands for low pressure, and with low pressure it's lousy weather. So we're going to get a lot of precipitation because low pressure allows that water vapor to rise into the upper atmosphere and create those clouds in the condensation.
All right, right behind that occluded front that's moved through, we've got a cold front. And actually, if you looked at a weather map today, that cold front's kind of in front of us. That's where our cold airs come from. It was pretty chilly this morning when you got up and went outside. Behind that cold front, we also have a big blue H. That's our high pressure. We have happy weather. The skies are beautiful. Blue, sunshine. It's a gorgeous day. It might be chilly, but we have pretty happy weather.
All right, now let's look in Texas. Look at Texas. They've got a stationary front there that is hanging out with Texas. Now that stationary front, remember, stationary fronts don't really move, so that's going to be there for a while. If we look at the stationary front closely, it's important to remember which side's warm and which side's cold. So let's look at the teeth. Okay, the teeth are chomping. The cold front teeth are chomping at the warm air, plus the arrows are pointed down. So that tells me that area here is cold, and the area below that is going to be warm. So we've got our warm air mass here and our cold air mass above it here. All right?
And then if you see there, sandwiched between the two stationary fronts, we have a warm front. All right, and in the warm front, we're going to remember that behind the warm front, back here, this is where our warm air is, right? And in front of it, we've got cold air, and it's moving this direction. So let's say that this moves in this direction generally, and it heads toward us. What kind of weather should we expect probably in the next week?
Well, it's a warm front, and we know that warm fronts bring drizzly rain followed by warmer temperatures. So hopefully we'll get some little bit of rain showers, and then it'll warm up a little bit so we won't be so cold.
All right, guys, do amazingly well on this quiz. We have fun things planned for Tuesday. Study hard, and good luck.